The Canadian Venture Capital and Private Equity Association has a mandate to support the industry, develop the industry, bring industry players together, figure out how to get more capital into the industry, and create policy frameworks that make sense in partnership with the government. Kim, you've taken over responsibility to make all of this happen. What is your roadmap and future plans for the CVCA?
I have to say, I come in at a time where there's a lot of growth, there's positivity, both from my members, government, and the ecosystem more widely. So in the next 5 years, I would like to tell the story about how private capital shapes entrepreneurs. And we often hear about venture capital being early in the life of a startup and being that blood that brings that company, to the forefront and gives it the fuel that it needs to survive in the early days of ideation. But private equity, they of course inject capital, but they do so much more than that because they have the strategy and they come with a perspective.
We've seen so much more capital come into the Canadian ecosystem in recent years, but there's still that challenge we have of talent and customers. How do you see Canada positioned today to attract and retain great talent, and what needs to be done to strengthen our position?
Well, it's interesting that you would ask me that because as I was taking on this role, I was going through a lot of what CVCA had asked for in the past, and I came upon a paper a few weeks ago where CVCA in 2016 made recommendations to the government on Canada's growth. They called on the government to really help talent enter and grow in Canada. And what we've seen in the last, I would say, 18 months to 24 months is the government agreeing and taking on that mandate because the tech talent that's coming into Canada is incredible, and it's building on some of the policies that the US have put forward. And people that were there, like the H-1B visas, are people that were skilled that went into the US. These people are not being renewed. They now have a choice. Do I stay in North America or do I go back from the country where they originated? And Canada is doubling down. They've put in place a 2-week turnaround for visas for skilled workers, and they're actually delivering on that.
And then we talk about availability of customers. A lot of the big global VCs, the Valley-based VCs, but also the big global VCs, bring a whole lot of warm enterprise customer or big customer introductions, warm leads. How do we close that gap in Canada?
What Canada's pushing out in terms of companies is attracting the attention not only of the Valley, but around the world. We're seeing capital from Asia, Europe. AI comes to mind in terms of areas that the world is looking at what Canada's doing. The exits is what everyone wants, and having those clients is key. I think it's going to be a mixture of different things where we're going to see big funds coming with an exit strategy in mind because they have seen the marketplace. I think like the growth agenda is something that is not to be dismissed. There's this sense that Canada, in the past, entrepreneurs have sold too quickly. But to me, there's, every situation is different. And sometimes it's time to exit because these entrepreneurs will go back into the market and create something else. And there are times where with just a little nudge, you can build a company that's much bigger and create more wealth, more growth. But as I said, like there's every path is unique to the company itself.
And the mandate of the CVCA also includes a broad diversity agenda. How are you making that work?
Well, this work began before me, but we'll start with the fact that they put a woman at the head of the organization as number one, a signal for inclusion and diversity. We have a committee within CVCA that is probably the most active, and I think it's super important to give the tools to our members to really embrace diversity and make some changes to having more diverse teams, having more inclusion. And the stats are clear. The reports have been written for the last decade about if you have more diversity, if you have women, women will invest in women. There's women out there that are betting on women. And to me, I will do everything that I can as the CEO of this organization to support that diversity and inclusion. Inclusion is really important. Diversity without the inclusion doesn't work.